So to start out part 2 of the 2024 Halloween Hoopla, I thought we would go back to last year's Hoopla and just share some of the things that I shared in the Hoopla, but also kind of how they turned out, because I do love to create backgrounds. As if you watch part 1, you saw that. But those backgrounds do turn into things after a live, after the camera's down. And I talked a little bit about embossing folders in part 1, and I do encourage you that if you have embossing folders, use them. If you don't have embossing folders, but you love embossing folders, get them when the brands have them available, because once they retire, they just go to stupid money. And all of these that I'm going to share with you, these have all been retired by Sizzix. I love them, but I do know that you can still get some of them, not all of them. I couldn't find all of them online, but definitely if you like any of these, just be mindful of those, that this is not something that came back this year. But we did a lot of different backgrounds, and again, I'm not going to go into detail on how they were done because we did this in the Hoopla last year, but it's really about taking like even a multi-level folder and inking a folder just to change it. This was just black cardstock, and it creates cool backgrounds, or doing metallic, because I think that's also just a great way. Even changing up your papers for folders can change up your backgrounds. But then you can use your die cut. So here you can see this was mica stain when we did it. I loved those big Frights dies, and there's the moon and the bats. That was really fun. This one, I know I did kind of a reptile background in part 1 with the stencil, but I do love this embossing folder because look at that great texture. But this, we played around with doing some inking and some double embossing, where you actually do your inking and spraying. You emboss it again with archival to put the color into the cracks, and then a little resist spray. But like, look at that, because this just started out as, well, a tag, and it became this. Or this just started out as just watercolor cardstock and became this. The shine is from resist spray. One of my favorites, especially this time of year, because it creates some cool shine. But here's a card we did. Look at that. Beautiful background. Eek. Remember that? Last year was the year of the eek, for sure. It was. And then, of course, another favorite, I talked about this too, the skull. Take a look at this. This is using embossing glaze. We did some embossing glaze in part 1 this year, but check out this technique, because it's very cool to just really take your plain paper and do your inking. This is inking and embossing folder, but see that embossing glaze? See that texture it gives? Really cool. But you can play around with different papers, even metallic, right? It's very kind of Terminator vibe. These are Ideology craft metallics with some paint rubbed over the top of them. But yeah, it's really interesting. The same way I like to play with inks and sprays, I also like to just play with embossing folders and different papers, because you can create some cool effects. But yes, they can turn out into cards. So it's not always just backgrounds, but having enough backgrounds, you can make a ton of cards or tags or whatever with it. So we talked about that. We shared that. Another fun thing that we shared is how to make some candy corn trees and do some little party things. These little guys right here. So sometimes, and you can see these a lot, like I love the idea of taking stuff, often leftover stuff, woodland trees, because they only come out at Christmas for Ideology. I love these little candy corn trees, and these were fun. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this year for the Ideology Halloween Live, I did talk about these makes that I did just using the Trick or Treat. I used the little candy corn trees. I did some of the fringe. This stuff, gosh, I love it. But you can do any kind of tinsel or anything. Use one of the display domes, and then just some stands, again, picked up at the dollar store. But you can take, see, I just glued it right to the cork. So you could take any kind of stand, but I love the idea of also putting a transparency. See, there's just one of the Ideology spiderweb transparencies cut and put into the back of the dome. And there's that. But a lot of people asked about the candy corn trees and how do you do that? Well, I did show how to do this in last year's Hoopla. So if you haven't made a candy corn tree or you want to try it out, give it a shot. It's pretty fun, because you can make, like, these are just great. They're great for a centerpiece. These light up. There's little balloon light LEDs that can get dropped into those little faces and light up, but they don't have to light up, but they're quite fun. So just wanted to remind you of that. The candy corn tree that we did. There's always inspiration. Just remember that. There's always inspiration when it comes to what we did. And I mean, we talked about the other one too. Out of sight is out of mind. Sometimes you'll see stuff and you're like, where did I see that? Or did I even see that? Another big thing that last year's Halloween Hoopla provided, and I am not here to torture you guys, but last year we launched this. This was a limited edition rock candy glitter. It was just celebrating 10 years of glitter. We still have, because rock candy, it's hard to believe that this glitter has really stayed in the line for 10 years, but it is a unique glitter, and if you know it, you know exactly why. We do sell rock candy year round. This is how it comes. It comes in this jar, rock candy, clear glitter. But last year, I remember we got to do a surprise launch of this, and it was amazing. And many of you were like, I don't even know if I'll ever need this much glitter. And this, I think this is my third just since last year. I use a lot of this because I like to pour it on and do different fun things with it. But just know that these are the same. But if you bought this and you haven't used it or you haven't opened it, use it. And even if you use it, fill it with this if you need to. But it is about like 4.5 of these that were in here. But some fun things we did, it was just talking about different ways that you can alter things with rock candy glitter. And I love the idea of altering things. Now, you can take, like, again, these, dollar store, anywhere. Sometimes you can find them at the craft store too. These are just little plastic skellies, but they could be anything that you want to alter. This is just rock candy. And I think I didn't do any inking or any of that. I just used rock candy to make him kind of sparkly. Now, when it comes to glues, everyone's going to have an opinion. That is okay. Because honestly, there's no right glue when it comes to glitter, in my opinion. Some people like double stick tape. Some people like a wet glue. Some people even like a glue stick, although I don't see how that's going to work. But hey, I can't judge. I use many different things. Sometimes I'll use collage medium. Sometimes, not often, sometimes. The two that I use most often for glitter would either be glossy accents. That's going to be kind of the go-to for small things like confections and, snowballs. Anything small that I need to get a little bit of glue on, I'll use glossy accents because it is very sticky, but it dries shiny. And it's important because I like that it dries shiny for the glitter because it still leaves a little sparkle. But something like this, like a skeleton, I don't see how you would have enough time to get glossy accents in there, even if you were to paint it on, because it's very thick. That is why I love resist spray. Resist spray, although it is designed to be a resist, it is a sprayable gloss resist. So it's really fluid. It kind of goes on this weird little bluish color. There's many videos I've done on how to use resist spray as a resist, okay? But this is really cool because by taking resist spray, you can spray something and then you can cover it in glitter and the glitter will dry directly onto that surface. And we're talking inside, outside, all the way around. So that's kind of, if it's something three-dimensional, that's going to be my go-to, is resist spray with glitter. But we also wanted to make a bunch of different colorful skellies. So I'll hold these up just to show you. They are all sparkly. Mario did these. He's like, do you need any help? I'm like, you know what? You can make some, because the set that I made last year, I sent them to a friend on social media just because she loved all the rainbow stuff. But something like this, if you have color. Another idea that we shared in last year's Hoopla was how to create your own custom colors. So I'll just move this around. So yes, and I've done this really for years. If you haven't seen this, check it out because it is life-changing. These are all custom colors of glitters. And do I have a lot? I do. I don't have every color because I didn't think I needed to make every color, but I got a lot of colors of glitter. These are all glitters that are tinted. Rock candy glitter is how it starts. And it's using alcohol inks. You can take your favorite colors of alcohol ink and tint it. You can use little cups, you can use little spoons. And again, I demoed this in last year's Hoopla. I do encourage you to use it. Now, in order to get these skellies and have them as colorful as they are, could you have just like painted a skelly and used the clear glitter? Yes, but it's going to look very clear and kind of dusty. It's still going to be sparkly, but it's going to have kind of a white sheen because it is translucent. But this is something where you want to have a coordinating color. So to start out, you just go in with distress paint. It could be any acrylic paint, let's be honest. It doesn't have to be distress. But take any of your paint the skelly, and it can be pretty sloppy, but just paint it whatever color you plan on glittering him. So Mario did, picked raspberry, carved pumpkin, mustard seed, twisted citron, This is tumble glass, wilted violet, and black soot. Paint it first, because this way, if the glitter doesn't stick to everything, you don't notice it as much. And then you're going to take your coordinating color of glitter. Now, this is done with alcohol ink, so it wouldn't necessarily be a distressed color, but you can find a match. Like this could be flamingo or maybe fiesta, but you do make a beautiful, perfectly colored dry glitter. And so I love the fact that you can use these for shaker cards, because this doesn't have a high static charge. See, so you don't see it sticking to the inside of the jar. So it also is perfect for shakers. But I love the ability to custom color. Even when you get like, you know, I love making a nice onyx black glitter or brown glitter or a light gray, because sometimes you even want something that's kind of light gray, but maybe not silver metallic. Isn't that beautiful? So you can use any, especially even the new colors of alcohol ink, which I've not done yet, but I can't wait to make some of those glitters. So that was a fun thing to create. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are in tinting mode, and especially as we gear up for the holiday hoopla next month, is mica flakes. Now, we also have distressed mica flakes in the line. These are synthetic mica flakes. So the synthetic mica flake is really nice because it has just all different sizes of that wonderful clear mica type, also great for shaker cards. But you can tint it exactly the same way you would tint glitter, which is alcohol ink. You put some in a little cup, you stir it up, but then you can also, I don't have as many because I really only use mica flakes for certain trees or a little shakety shake. So I just have kind of the basics. Again, black, silver, brown, purple, a couple of greens, but they tint beautifully. I keep them, Ranger sells these storage jars. These are what the embossing glaze comes in. There you are. Look at those mica. Just beautiful. So some ideas. If you haven't done this yet, or maybe you haven't gotten around to it from last year, this is your reminder to get out your stuff, get out your inks, and well, tint away. Kind of have a good time with it. So let me close these up. Just thought that was a fun thing to see, because I do believe, like during the hoopla, we really shared just about doing something like this, but I think adding color to color, it's important to remember, like base coat it first with paint, and then when you add that glitter, you do get like a perfectly wonderful, shiny, sparkly. Look at those.
Super fun, super easy.
Was.
Yeah.
It was good fun. But resist spray, well, that's your glue of choice for something dimensional. All right. There you go. Thanks, Mario. Give me those. Give me those. Give me all that.
Okay.
And then, at the end of it all, I think these guys kind of stole the show last year's hoopla. And I'll admit, I've made more since, I think last year maybe I did like one or two in the hoopla. But I wanted to have a whole bunch of these. These are hilarious. They are, well, they're just fun. They're party skellies. The thing about this is that you can go, these are from the dollar store. You might find them at other craft stores. You know, it's not like an exclusive thing. You can maybe even find them online, but this was 8 of them for $1.25. They start out kind of, well, I guess you could keep them like this. I don't. You can paint them, so you can spray paint them, you can put acrylic paint, just base coat them, and then just went in with a distressed crayon, kind of grunged them. Again, the tutorial is in last year's hoopla. You can see how we transformed them. We talked about how to make your own little party hats. Maybe you guys also bought, you know, 2,400 pom-poms like I did, and you haven't used them yet, but get out your papers. These are all just ideology backdrops. This is a little mummy cloth that was tinted, but they are hilarious. These are fun to tie on to treat bags. This is great if you're having a Halloween party just as a favor. I just think they really are a lot of fun, really clever and great to do. So I want to remind you of this, even if it's just the idea of the party hat. You're like, oh, I'm going to take a party hat and put it on the ghostie that I got this year. Great, make a party hat for the ghostie. Or you're going to do a little flouncy collar with mummy cloth and sewn. It's just fun, and these are paper straws. So check it out. You know, last year I didn't get mine at the dollar store. I think I picked up mine at Joann because they were black. So it's always important to, I do remember that, Mary, the bazillion pom-poms, but they were beautiful and they're still color coordinated, okay? This idea though, just to kind of remind you, because I know that I focused on the skelly, but let's say you have ideology stuff. So maybe you bought, or maybe you have left over, like the ideology trick or treat. You can take any of these ideas, because you might be like, you know what, the skeleton, the skull, that freaks my freak, not interested. You could have anything else. Maybe it's little pumpkins. Maybe it's, again, like a ghostie, something that you bought or have. You can still use this idea to alter it. So you can still sew your little flouncy mummy cloth. It doesn't have to look like much, but then that collar could get glued under that little ideology jack. And then maybe you made a bunch of party hats. That party hat can go on top, and there you go. Now that could go on a stick, or that could go on something else. And this is what I was saying, that last year's ideas sparked ideas for this year. And that's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to kind of stroll down and just share some different ideas of what we can do with the things that we've learned. It's always important that there's so much inspiration out there. It's at your fingertips. You just have to remember to not only go and look, but take the time to do it. Just even if you make one or two, it's still really fun to play around. So I'm going to hand this stuff off to Mario, kind of clear the deck and give myself some room for things. I'll give you this. I'll give you these right here. Okay. Thanks, these and these two. All right. Thanks, Mario. Sure. Okay. So when I said that an idea, one idea sparks another, that is absolutely the truth. Because I think that when you look at different things and you look at basic structures and you think about what you've done at any time, it's important to just remember how you can apply an idea to a season. So I know that these are not Halloween. I get that. But I did these for ideology, and it was just something super simple. It was taking a vignette box, covering it with see, it's just turning it the other way, covering it with backdrops, doing a little splatter paint, and then using the ideology typography. We re-release these, which I'm so excited about. It has multiple letters back there, and just spelling out little sentiments just glued on. Now, yes, I used vignette boxes. I used the small ones, but you could use anything. You could find a picture frame, you could find a canvas, you could do whatever you want. And I loved doing this idea because they were very quick. Honestly, you can make all of these in an hour if you did compartmental making, if you already had the embellishments made. And so I thought, well, I do have some embellishments made. You know, I already made a bunch of these little party hats and things. So how about I just do some Halloween ones? So that's what I did. Now, I am going to do a tutorial on these guys during the holiday hoopla. I'll talk about painting and glittering, and we will actually get into that for the holiday. But I wanted to share the whole concept of how you can take an idea and just change its seasonality. So I used some Halloween backdrops, typography that says a little hocus pocus. There's the cat with the hat, a little fringe, because you can use fringe or you could do mummy cloth. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to always have a collar. And then because it was hocus pocus, I loved adding the little broom. And these are designed that they can sit up. So the fact that it's a vignette box really allows them to sit, but you can also hang them. I mean, if you have stuff over the back, you might want to chop it off. But these are easy to hang on the wall as well. But I thought the cat with the hocus pocus was very cute. Then I did this guy, little Jack with the party hat, and trick or treat. I love this paper. Again, we'll go into detail in the next hoopla of how to create these, but it's easy. You're just gluing it on, and you could paint the typography, you can make them metallic, you can do all sorts of different things that you want. But then I just took confections that I had already rock candied. So all of these things were in the muffin tin. That's why we had to restock it, because I use it. I'm like, oh cool, party hat, done. You make a bunch of them. You don't just make one. Just sit down for an hour or so and just make hats for days so you have them. It'd be great for birthdays or whatever too. But then I was like, okay, I'll stick that down. Could he have had a flouncy collar? Sure. But I really wanted him to have a little candy around, so I needed to save the real estate. And then I wanted to just do something kind of creepy, a little boo to you. So this one I used, again, these are backdrops. I love that we incorporate backdrops that are not just patterns and prints, but also some grunge, because you could do this with paint, and you could do one of the backgrounds that we made in the last, first part of the hoopla, but it was already done. Then I added a little ideology tombstone, the new little skull, some bones, some funky little moss, and then boo to you, and then I tied a little spider adornment around the bee, just because, why not? It was fun. And it filled in the blank. Let's be honest, I glued this offset. Hey, don't worry about it. I was like, okay, I need to fill in the blank. There we go. Easy enough. So just be mindful. This is where I encourage any creative. When you're watching a live, when you're watching YouTube, when you're going on a blog, anything, have a pad of paper or a pen or some sort of note-taking device. Maybe it's your iPad, and jot things down, because if you don't jot things down, you're going to forget the idea. out of sight, out of mind. And this really came to me just last night. I was done, and I looked over at the Christmas stuff. I'm like, man, I want to make some Halloween ones. So honestly, it was an hour and it was done, all of them, because cutting paper is really quick. It's super forgiving. You sand off the excess and off you go. So I think that that's really just a fun way to incorporate elements in an idea that maybe you had in a different season. So I'm just going to take these little ones, move these over here. Oh my gosh, so much stuff. Thanks, Mario. I know. I got to say, Mario is like working behind the scenes in overtime this time. He's like, I got to keep you going. I got to keep things clear for you. Thanks, Mario. Okay. Another idea that I shared last year that sparked a new one. We talk about ideology bubbles. I love ideology bubbles. These come out every Halloween. They make great bubbles, like for a little cauldron, this little ideology cauldron, little ideology tiny lights, so you can light up the bubbles. You can also make snowballs. These are great, taking this, taking some glossy accents, and taking this, and some glitter. I'll use this one, rock candy. And then it makes snowballs because it puts this icy finish on there, and they're beautiful. They light up really great. But doing this, I love that we have the cauldron. I will say that, this is like the first cauldron we ever did. I haven't made one with the new one, which I really love, because this new one, we already put in the hole. You see the hole in the bottom? The original one didn't. You have to drill through it, and it was stinky. It was hard. But this one, not only do we have a hole, but it has feet. And I love that because it allows the tiny lights to go in there. So that's our newest cauldron. Those are the tombstones I used on the box. There's the broom. So this is the Ideology Graveyard Skew. But this is great for bubbling. Get to the point, Holtz. The point is this, that an idea, something really simple, can spark something completely crazy. So at the dollar store, I found, oh man, I didn't even get one. Yeah, I did. Here it is. See, I couldn't recognize it at first. I found these little cheap black plastic cauldrons, okay? And they were like in a multi-pack at the dollar store, okay? And I was like, you can also find these during St. Patrick's Day at the dollar store, just so you know, because it's a little pot of gold. But I was like, that's okay. And it was black and it's shiny and it was just not good. But I'm like, I wonder if I can transform that. So the first thing I did, as you can see, I wanted to put this on so it had a chance to dry, is I went in and used some grit paste Crypt. And I just put out a little pile, took my finger and literally just smeared it on. Because I didn't want to coat it. I wanted it to look really messy. And it does. It looks terrible right now. But trust the process, people. Trust the process. So I put that on first, let it dry. Once this dries, then I went in with paints. And I'll talk about the painting process before I show you the finished one, because it's easy to understand. You paint the whole thing black. So after this dries, now I would go in and paint it black again. And that's going to give this a lot of texture, and you won't see where there's a lot and where there's a little. Because you can see right now with the Crypt, like, oh, it's really heavy here and it's really light here. That's why you want to be kind of haphazard with it. When you paint it all black, it's all black. Then you're just going to take whatever accent paints you want to use. So I did a couple of them. You can do purple and pick a couple of different shades, and green, do a couple of different shades. And what I did is, after it was done, it was black, I took a paintbrush and just dry brushed. You guys know dry brushing, you put a little bit of paint on there, wipe it off and go over it. I'll tell you right now, I absolutely suck at dry brushing. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not good at it. They say you have to have a light hand, just use a little bit of paint. I can't. I'm like dip, even though I think I wiped off 100% of it, I go in and it's like I just dipped it back in the thing. Okay, so here's the trick. After I painted it, it really looked like most of it was green or purple, okay? I took a glove, I put it on my hand, so imagine a glove, I don't need to put it on, I'm giving you the visuals, because it's just more fun if you play it through this process. And then I took black paint and I painted my glove with black paint, just painted it. Then I took this and I literally just grabbed around the edge with a painted glove, and it hit the high points and kind of knocked back the green and purple paint that I painted it. So the whole thing was painted black, dry brush in a color, if you're good at dry brushing. But if you're not, then take a glove, paint a thin layer of black paint, and while it's wet, just grip the cauldrons. And then what you end up with are incredibly cool, big, bubbly cauldrons filled with bubbles that light up. So you've got all those great little bubbles, and there's that texture I was talking about. So see that little bit of green, but see how like the really high points were knocked back with black? That's from the glove. So there's my green one. Move this out of the way. We'll talk about tiny lights and how I glued it and how I built it. Check out this beauty. Look at that purple. Woo, purple bubbling cauldron. Yummy, with tiny lights in there. Because I think tiny lights, that's just everything. I mean, this really, these cauldrons, it was one cauldron, one pack of bubbles, just one. You only need one, and I use the entire pack per cauldron. To get the height, you know me and styrofoam balls, really inexpensive. A little 1.5-inch ball, I cut one of them in half. That I put on the bottom, flat side down. There you go, hot glued. Then I put a toothpick into this one with some in and some sticking out, hot glue, and then I stuck it in there so the toothpick kept them balanced, right? Because otherwise if you try to, put the two balls together without a toothpick, it's going to roll off. So that is what I did, and that got me here. So see, it's already the height we want. You're not trying to, I didn't have to fill in any gaps because see, it fills in just enough that the bubbles are big enough that they don't fall in. You start with the bigger ones and you kind of work around. So after that was hot glued and all my painting was done, I inked the bubbles with alcohol ink. Just again, we talked about this in last year's Hoopla. I did show how to alcohol ink these because we talked about this little guy. But that was the idea where I'm like, I love this little bubbling cauldron. I've been seeing on social media everyone taking like these giant cauldrons and using Christmas ornaments. And I'm like, well, that's cool too. But when I saw this kind of in-between size, I'm like, I wonder, wouldn't it be cool if we could just kind of mimic that look? And I just think they turned out really fun because these can go next to your ghosty. For those of you that got the ghosty, it's a perfect scale for the ghosty. Alcohol inking the bubbles means that it looks good on or off. I love that during Halloween, we have green and purple lights. Do you have to use green and purple? No. But if you just use the white lights, it will light up and it will light up through the bubbles, but it won't look as purple or as green. That's because the lights in there are purple. That's the whole thing to note. So, I like the fact that we can utilize the colors of the tiny lights. Just going to pull out that little safety thing. See, there's our purple. They're beautiful, huh? They look really good. So I think what's fun is if you have anything around your house, and this was really, really easy. You just poke a little hole. You can use a drill. You can use, a little wood burning tool. You can use a tip of your glue gun if you want. But look at that texture from the grit paste, crypt, and then just the painting. Do you have to do that? No. You could just take the plastic as is, but I think that it definitely gives that whole little bit of texture. I love using the handle as kind of like that little holder to get some of the bubbles to spill out. Now, how do you build it? Well, this is the thing, and this is why I'm not demoing it during the Hoopla, because it takes a while. I'm going to say the prepping part is easy, but the gluing part takes time because you have to glue it in stages. So with your inked bubbles and your glossy accents, you pick one up, you put a little glue in, and you stick it down. And what you do is you start on the outside, you glue bubbles, then you glue it inside, and you kind of make a ring. And once you cover that, you need to let it dry. Drying time, we're talking 15 minutes in between. So this is not an overnighter. This is like 15 minutes. Then you bring it back, and then you add your next layer. And once you have established that first layer, you can still, like if you really look close, you can see the big ones that form kind of that ring. Then you just start like gluing. They could be small because you can put big on top of small as you grow, but do another layer, let it dry. Do another layer, let it dry. Do another layer. And once you're happy with kind of the shape of it, then you start at the bottom. And the bottom was just working on a craft sheet. So I set it on a craft sheet with a tray, and I started, because it's flat, you put some glossy accents and you start gluing the bubbles to the actual cauldron. So you can see there, those that make contact with the cauldron. Same thing. You put like 2 or 3, let it dry. Put another layer, let it dry. And then you build up small. And do you have to do this? No. Is it fragile? It is. But I think it looks really good when it's sitting on something because you got that little spill and that little overflow. But once the glossy accents dries, it's on there. Could you use collage medium? You could, but collage medium, remember, is matte. it is matte finish because we wanted it to not show a shine on paper. So if you put something matte on something shiny, you'll see it. So you'll see all those little cloudy, so you'll have cloudy bubbles. If you want cloudy bubbles, that's fine, but that's the difference between something matte and something glossy. So glossy accents, it doesn't matter if you get glue everywhere because they're still going to be shiny like the bubbles, but matte is going to make it frosty. So just so you know, okay? I also think that glossy accents dries way faster for this project than collage medium, but if that's all you have and you want to try it, give it a whirl. But this stuff is sticky, but it is about patience. Like, don't try to just build up this whole little thing like, oh, I'm really good at stacking these, because once it goes, if you don't have any foundation that's dry, it's just a sticky mess. It doesn't mean that it's going to change anything. It just becomes pretty sticky. But yeah, a fun idea, right? Alcohol inking, and just think of just the colors. So you could do anything. You could do multicolor bubbles if you want. You could keep them clear if you wanted to. You don't even have to ink them if you don't want to. You can keep them clear. But I just thought that it was a lot of fun when I saw this cauldron. I'm like, huh. And honestly, I just thought, oh, that's really crazy. Is this going to be too much work? Am I going to need like, 5 packs of bubbles? No, 1 pack of bubbles is good. So again, I shared how to tint these. I shared how to color these with alcohol ink in last year's Hoopla. So you can learn how to color these, but the assembly is exactly the same, just glossy accents and build as you go. But yeah, quite a bit of fun. So yeah, my ghosties are going to get, a couple of them are going to get cauldrons, or maybe a skelly, because we did buy a lot of skellies. Didn't we?
We did.
How many skellies? You want to grab one? He's right out the door, sitting on the sewing machine. There's one right there to your right. I bought a lot of these skellies. I found them at Lowe's. I just liked them because they had just some great poses to them. No? Yeah. Okay, cool. Walk right by it. Look at this guy. He's hilarious. Look at him. I love how like jointed he was. See, like he holds his shape. So you should see, they're all over the house. They're hanging off of things, off suitcases. He's raising his hand like, hey.
25.
Yeah, they're just fun because they were really inexpensive, like maybe $4.99 or something. But, he would be good. He can kind of sit there, and maybe he's going to have he's going to hold on to a little cauldron. See? That totally would be cool. Sitting on a shelf. Yeah, got little bubbles. I love Halloween. Isn't that just fun? Come on. That's just good fun right there. So, yeah. Skellies for the win at Lowe's of all places, because
Lowe's
yeah, Lowe's online. We bought them online because ours didn't have many. But yeah, I think I just like honestly that he held his shape, because then you could high five. Okay, moving on. Thanks, Mario.
Sure.
Just a great idea. Just to remind you, of course, that when you see something, sometimes scale it is hard to connect the dots, because I will say that I walked by these a few times before it just finally clicked, because I'm like, I love this little cauldron. It's so cool. What would I do with it? Would I put things in it? What would I fill it with? And then the bubble thing, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I didn't even think that the bubbles would be the right scale, but then I realized I only use small ones on that. So just a fun idea. Okay, let me clear off some of this stuff. All right. Crazy cool. Thanks, Mario.
Sure.
Give you this. It is good. Ideas. This is what it's like. This is a day of the life, and Mario is the best sport. I'm like, we got to go back.
Right.
I think I have this idea. He's like, okay.
Let's go get it.
He's like,
while they have it.
yeah. That is the other thing. Like, look, don't ask me to be part of your support system to not shop, because I am the guy, buy now, think later. Because I always feel like if I think about it, and what will I do, and then I go back to get it, it's gone, and it just makes me crazy. Okay, I'm gonna get this out because we are gonna get some ink going. It's not just show and tell. There's got to be some ink going. So let me just set this up. All right, that's pretty good. Ooh, nice. Okay. All right. So next thing I'm going to talk about, because we definitely see the benefit of alcohol inks. If you haven't used them, or maybe you just thought alcohol inks were just for backgrounds, I'm telling you, altering things, especially during this time of year, there are so many things out there that you don't even see the potential of. And that's really all the blank stuff. You can go to, again, dollar store, craft store, even Goodwill or thrift shops, and you find a lot of blank things, like maybe it's ceramic or maybe it's wood. Try different mediums. But we were at the dollar store. And I found these. These were $1.25 because it's a $1.25 store, but dollar store for Halloween. And I'm like, well, these are cute. How cool would these be if we were able to just take their glass? Now, if you don't have ones that are pumpkins, just think about going to the candle aisle and just getting candle holders, okay? Absolutely love that. But being able to make these any color you want with alcohol ink, it's just super easy. And I even made it kind of look like old glass because I wanted it to have those little, I don't know if you can see all the little bubbles in there. I'll show you how to do these, but it's really fun because you can make any color you want. Get yourself some battery operated tea lights, turn them on if you can. There we go. Oh, and then turn it back off. There we go. Oh my gosh, are you seeing this? There we go. Works in the purple, not the orange. And then you just have a nice little flickery tea light. But you could, I mean, even this you could put a candle in because it's glass. But the whole point is seeing stuff for what it is and just also seeing how easy it's going to be to change the color. That's what I'm going to do, right? So I made a green one, orange one, and a purple one. You can make a rainbow one if you wanted to. You can make a blue. You can make anything you want. Here's how easy it is to create it. And did I buy a lot? Yes, because am I just going to fill one with candy corn? Yes, I am, because you can see through it. So just stuffed with candy corn and then put a tea light on top. How perfect is that? Really, really good. See, Kay just said that. I can see the clear one filled with candy corn. Kay, you and I are on the same page. Fill it up and then I'll put a tea light in and now it's a candy corn holder. Come on. So many great ideas. All right, so here's how easy it is to do. I'm going to start with colors that we want to create. What colors do we want to do? I've done an orange one. You want to do like let's just do one that's kind of weird and blue. Why not? I don't even know if I put any blue in here before I even said it. Ooh, monsoon, that could be good. Bayou, that could be good. So this, ooh, and then even Laguna. Okay, it's going to be like a teal blue pumpkin, right? Because why not? We've already done it. Now, the beauty of this also is that if you didn't like it, you could clean it out. So you could clean it out. So I just saw pink. I don't know. We can do two. We can do a pink one as well. How about that? All right, Sherry. I have pink. I have a couple of shades of pink. So my first advice, that's what I'm looking, is that when you go to choose a color, I like to use a couple of different shades. You'll see why, because you're going to get some different looks to it. So like when I did orange, I did a couple of colors, I think Sunset and Valencia. You just don't want to get too dark. So even on the purple, I think I did Twilight and maybe a little bit of Amethyst, but I didn't go like full on dark colors, because if you go too dark, it'll still light up, but you know, I like the fact that it's light. But my point is if you don't like how it turns out, it's very easy to clean these out. You can clean it out with just alcohol or sanitizer and off you go. All right. So first things first, I've got some isopropyl. This is just 91% alcohol. We want to clean the glass first with alcohol, because if these were in the store and someone picked it up and looked at it and they have oil on their hands or lotion or anything, it's going to act as a resist. That oil is going to resist the ink. So we want to just clean it before you ink it. I like to ink from the inside out. The reason is because that glass shine is the glass shine. The alcohol inks are translucent, but there's nothing that beats that finish of glass. So could you do the outside? You could, but you're going to get a way better effect on the inside, in my opinion. Okay? So I'm just going to take some alcohol. I'm just going to spray that in. Take a paper towel, and you just wipe it out. Super simple. That's it. Okay? Don't have to go in the dishwasher, go through some sort of decontamination chamber. Just put that in, clean that out. Okay. Perfect, perfect. What's that? What? Decontamination chamber. Oh, is that what I said? I'm sorry. My brain just sometimes, it's just me. My brain envisions it, and then my mouth just is like, my mouth's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's let that one go. All right. So the alcohol dries super fast. Okay, it's good. Is it food safe? No, alcohol they're not food safe. So you're not going to put anything that comes in contact with food that you're going to eat. So no. To color, let's start with the teal one. We need to. Okay, we need to do that. I know that sometimes people want to tint things. This is another idea. Someone that asked about food safe. This was just an idea that I saw. I think someone did it around the holidays. Maybe it was around Christmas time, and I thought it was really clever. Because they sent an email and they're like, hey, you know, I really want to tint my wine glasses for the holidays. Can I do that? And I'm like, no, you can't. You know, it's not food safe. It shouldn't come in contact with your mouth. you know, you just don't want to do that. And she's like, oh, okay, I really want that. I'm like, I get it, but you really shouldn't. So like a week goes by or so, and she sends me an email. She's like, success. And what she did is she alcohol inked the stem of the wine glass. She kept the whole top of the glass just by itself, but she was able to tint and the best part is that after Christmas, she just washed it off, because you just use any type of solvent, and she cleaned it. So she was able to tint them, and then it's good. Is alcohol safe to put a candle in? Yes, because the alcohol flashes off. The alcohol flashes off in seconds. So it's totally, completely fine. You don't want to do this in an open flame right now, but once it dries, you don't have to worry about a candle or anything. But isn't that cool on the glass? Like, clean it off. And I thought, that's a great idea. As long as you're doing something that doesn't come in contact with the food, it's a great idea to tint the wine glass and then wash it after the season. Smart. Okay. Here's what you need to do. My advice, and this is not to sell you on anything, but you need to use your ink. You need to use enough ink in here to tint it. Now, there's many ways to do it. You can put ink on a foam, and you can go in by hand with a makeup sponge. Do whatever you want. I just go in and I just squeeze some inks just in different areas. See, I don't worry about covering it right now. I'm going to go in with a couple of different colors. These are some blues. I don't really have a lot of teals, but this Laguna is going to make it, it's going to teal it up, that's for sure. Wowza. All right. Yeah, there you go. Laguna is going to take care of that. How much ink? I don't know. But I start just by really applying it. See right there, like around the ring of the glass. Then, you see that little puddle? That's what you want. You want, I'm going to say, maybe like a quarter size puddle, if you can really do a puddle according to a coin size. But then, you're just going to look through. I'll try to stay in camera, but you see the vacant spots? You can see those if you look inside it over something white. You're just going to tip this and just like start spinning it and just try to navigate that ink puddle. You can even shake it over those blank spots. That's it. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be spin art. It doesn't have to. You can. I would imagine you could just spin it around, but I really am just using that puddle. See, that puddle is still there. It's getting smaller, but you see how it's starting to cover everything? And I love the drippage. That's why I like to do it this way. But again, you could go in and wipe it out. That's going to be enough time to, I think, just give it that little peek. Okay, I still see that little spot back there. We're going to take care of it. We just bring it up. And I also love that it's got a little lip here. So see, it's not really pouring out. It's giving me a little bit of time to just even kind of shake that. Because I think sometimes, oh, look at that teal color. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, there's still some back there. Let's go. Let's fill that in. So you can do this to Christmas ornaments. So think of all those clear ornaments. Do the same thing. Pop off the top, put alcohol ink, spin it around. Zippity-doo-dah, you're done. So I think that's going to be great. Next, paper towel, because we need to get that ink out of there. That's just too much ink. It would dry eventually, but it's going to dry into like a crusty mess, and there's no reason to do it. Plus, it's going to allow me to use the excess ink to do something else. So I'm going to tip this out. Now, if you were doing multiples, could you have poured this into the next one? Sure. But you see how I got that little bit of ink on the rim of that and this ink here? I'm going to take the paper towel, fold it, and I'm going to use that ink to go and just ink that inner ring, just to give it a little bit of color. So that's all I'm doing. Just kind of using that excess right there. There we go. And we're going to let it dry. How long does it take to dry? Like I said, it doesn't take very long. That little bit of ink in there, that's not too much. I'll probably try to pour a little bit more out. It will dry though. It's just going to take that much longer to dry. But sometimes that's pretty much all we're going to get out. I don't like to dry them upside down because it's not going to, see, that's pretty much all the ink I'm going to get. There we go. It will, like as it's drying, see it's already starting to collect. Let this dry. You can put it in a well-ventilated area. Very important, you know, because don't use this as a room freshener. You're just going to be happier than you should be if you just fill your room with these. Let it dry. It could be outside. It could be in the garage. It could be with a fan. And then once it dries, we'll put a light in. It's going to light up. But like, yeah, look at that color. Isn't that pretty? Beautiful, beautiful. So we're going to let all that ink just kind of dry. I'll hand this off to Mario. He'll put out in the garage. Really, it'd be like, I'm going to say 5 to 10 minutes and it's going to be done. Completely done. Then we'll do the next step. So I'll give him that one. I'll ink another one and then maybe that one will be done and he can bring it back in. Okay, thanks, Mario. All right, let me cap these and we'll do a pink one because you guys said pink because, well, it's just fun. And honestly, the possibilities are endless. You could do this with your kids. You just watch them around alcohol ink. You know, it's not really meant for kids. But if you watch your kids and they're not, you know, putting it in their mouth or dripping in their eyes. It's really a fun thing. You can even do the ink and just let them spin it around because it's quite a bit of fun, okay? It's really fun. Okay. So now I'm just going to do some pinks. This is all the pinks I have, but you could do other colors. Do whatever you want to do. And ornaments, candle holders, there's so many glass things. And I said the dollar store because really that's the best place, or the thrift store. Goodwill, you find so many different glass things and you think like, ooh, what would you do with it? The fact that you can customize it with stuff that you have that you probably bought for other things, you wouldn't think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be doing some pink pumpkins. But hey, if you were at the stores looking at Halloween this year, color was the thing. Neons and coral, sherbet, lime. Gosh, there were so many colors. Okay, so I've got my ink. See, I've got like that little puddle in there. You guys see it? All right. Then we're just going to do the same thing. Just move it around. I'm actually kind of looking off of I'm trying to keep it in camera, but my head's on the outside just to, yeah, you just move it. It's super easy. I do love doing this with those clear ornaments because it looks super impressive. Just have to remember that when you're letting them dry, you have to let air get to them. A lot of times when people do ornaments, they put them upside down. Do that maybe on a drying rack so air can get in from underneath. All right. Come on, voice. Stay together. There we go. Woo-wee. Look at that. That's a happy pink one. Okay. Let's cap these up.
So a lot of people are asking about
yes.
Could you put glue before the alcohol ink dries, and I know the answer is that alcohol ink is not sticky, so you need to use some type of glue, right?
Huh?
They want to put glitter. They want to know, like, can you put glitter in there now before the alcohol ink dries? But
oh
that
no,
won't stick to
yeah,
that.
alcohol ink doesn't have any adhesive properties. It's just a colorant.
Right.
So yeah, the glitter would stick to it while it's wet, and you might get a little bit to dry, but it's not really a glue. You're better off, like, if you wanted to glitter it for whatever reason, let it dry and then just maybe take a little spray adhesive. You know, don't use resist spray because resist spray will eat away this ink, but like, you know, maybe some type of aerosol, and then you can sprinkle glitter in there. Or you could put resist spray and glitter first and then alcohol ink it after that dries. You could do that. But yes, this, although it has resin and it is kind of sticky, it doesn't really have any adhesive properties. Not really, not any great ones.
Thank you. I knew you'd make more sense of it than I would.
All right,
I knew what I was trying to
fun.
say,
Yeah, I just see in the chat where people are talking about like charity shops and church sales and all that of glass. I'm telling you, you'll never look at glass votives the same way again. Because you pass them by in the store and you're like, ugh, look how stupid that is. Just a little thing. But when you ink it, it's like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Look at that. Look at the colors. And we're going to let it dry because I love the striation. So you don't, I mean, you'll see it in some colors, like see that orange where it dries like that. But you don't like, it just looks more like hand-blown glass with the imperfections. And that's why I like to do it this way. So we're going to let this one dry. I'll hand that off to you. Maybe the other one's dry, maybe not. And then I can show you that. But it's really, really good. Will this work with alcohol pearls? Alcohol pearls have a pigment in them. So if you do, the glass will not be translucent because it's pearlescent. But the short answer is yes, but you would need blending solution in there to get that pearl to move around and bond if you don't have blending solution. I wouldn't personally recommend it. I would stick with alcohol ink because the resin in this ink is different than what's in pearls, and you're just going to have better results, better consistent results. So that would be me. For people that are asking about paints and things, yes, you can, I mean, you've seen on crafts shows for years, you can put acrylic paint, but I love the fact that the alcohol ink tints this, and more importantly, it dries really quick, and I love the idea about color. So there you go. I would not use mixatives or alloys for this. If you want those metallic, just buy a can of spray paint and spray it in, because the amount of mixative and alloy it would take to do this would pretty much be the bottle.
Ooh,
so
that's cool.
Oh wow, that's a beauty. All right, so this one's dry. Thanks, Mario.
Sure.
Look at that, dry. So you could be done. You could leave it at this stage, but like I said, I like to give it more of that, I don't know, kind of mercury glassish look. Okay, so all I do is go back to my spray bottle of alcohol that I've labeled, and we're just going to spray inside. You'll see what happens as soon as you do it, but you want to do this when the ink is dry. And you could do this anytime after it's dry. It doesn't have to be right away. It could be the next day or whatever. But by spraying it in, so I'm just going to give it a mist, and I'll show you what it's going to do. See what it did?
That's cool.
Yeah, it just creates an effect. So you might want to try like just different distances, different drips, but it just quickly I'll just say erodes the ink. Now, if you hose it down, that's how you clean it. That's how you start over, is essentially just spraying a ton of alcohol. So I just do a little bit, I turn a little bit. You can flick it in there. You can use a splatter brush. I mean, really, you could do whatever, but alcohol cleans alcohol. That's really the gist of it. So I'm just moving it, but see, it creates, to me, you don't notice it as much, but I think when the light hits it, it just creates, I think, a completely different effect of the glass that I happen to like. So see, imagine if this was a clear Christmas ornament. Don't you think looking through that and seeing the color a little bit more mottled just has a bit more of a vintage vibe? To me, it does. So I absolutely love that. So the inks in the glass are not permanent. Permanent in a sense, are they waterproof? Yes, but solvent removes solvent. So I guess it just depends on the idea of permanency. But yes, you can leave them. If you touch them, the ink is not going to come off on your hands. It's dry. It is waterproof, but solvent removes solvent, unless you wanted to seal it, and we don't really talk about sealing. But there are people that do a lot of sealing. You know, they use different varnishes and all that, but I think that's more of an artist selling their work. But I think for home decor, don't overthink the ink. Like, it's absolutely perfect, and I think that the result is cool. Would you mind grabbing the pink one, Mario? Thanks. We'll finish that pink one too, just so you can see all the different colors of jacks. But I really want you to be inspired by the idea. That's the most important. So if you go out to the dollar store and you don't see, you know, these in particular, think for either Halloween, think of other votives, think for table centerpieces, think for the holiday season, and ways that you can kind of create when you're going to it. Yes, if you get tired of one color, you change it to another. Exactly. Just clean it with alcohol. You can even use glass cleaner, because a lot of glass cleaners have a solvent or an ammonia that will clean that out. But if you went in with soap and water, you could clean this out with soap and water as well. So when I say they're waterproof, it just means if it got wet, the ink isn't going to immediately come out, but alcohol inks are not waterproof either. So like if you were to go in with water or put it in the dishwasher, the ink would come out. It just would. It's just not designed that way.
Pretty.
Ooh, that's a pretty one. Look at that. Gosh, who knew we would have so many colorful jacks? Gosh, these are fun. Yeah. I think we need to give these away, Mario. I think that'd be fun. Maybe we'll do that at the end, this whole little set. They're good, huh?
Yeah, they're
Good fun. All right, look at that. See how that alcohol just makes magic right away into that. And that's it. You really don't need a lot. You'll get the hang of how much alcohol, because the first time I did, I was spraying and I was waiting for it to happen, and then everything just started dripping down again. I'm like, oh boy. So, all right, so let's look at these. Let's see if we can line these up in some aesthetically pleasing order. Can we do that? Let's see. Does that act as like a little kickstand? Oh, I don't know. No, maybe not. Ooh. Oh, look at that. How are we doing? How's that looking on camera?
That's looking so good.
This is going to give me serious anxiety. Serious. I'm going to put this one up, and then the other ones are going to fall. A little shakety shake. Mario, I cannot do this.
You want a
I
hand?
cannot do this. You get the idea. You get the idea. You've just now witnessed my level of patience. My level of patience is like, if this just doesn't work, I would just throw it on the floor. There you go. There's as rainbow as you're going to get. Are you happy with that?
That is
Whoop, whoop.
beautiful.
Okay, perfect.
Damn.
Hey, I got to say, like this, it reminds me of Mr. Kool-Aid. How many of you guys remember Mr. Kool-Aid? Remember him?
I do.
He would scare me because I just thought he was going to bust through the kitchen wall. But hey, those are fun. So there we go. A set of rainbow jacks.
Super fun.
Super simple. Quite a lot of fun. All that fun for what? $1, 2, 3, 4, $5, $6. Easy, easy. Okay. I'll hand those off to you.
I got it.
There you go. Oh, do you?
Yeah.
See? Just swung around to Mario and be like, there you go. Yeah. Maybe we'll put a couple back in a sec. Okay. Next up, we'll talk about just some different ways of creating. Because listen, I love the dollar store. Don't get me wrong. I do. But I love the idea of just looking at some of the things that maybe you've acquired, if you have, in a different way. So one of the stamp sets I released this year with Stampers Anonymous is called Framed Frights. And I really fell in love with this artist's art. I've done a lot of Halloween stamps. I've just never had any like this. And I loved just everything about it, the spooky, mysterious vibe. But more than anything, I love the charm of each scene. And so I put them in the frames. They all had different frames initially, but I wanted something pretty consistent and cohesive. And I love that they not only have some great things, but they also have sentiment. So if you're doing a card, there's a lot of inspiration, again, on the blog or social about using framed Frights for cards. But with framed Frights, you know me, I'm going to take it as literal as possible. I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if I took a framed Fright and like framed the Fright? And I was thinking about different ways to do it because I wanted it not only to be framed, but the fact that there are coordinating dies. So Simon Says Stamp does coordinating dies for the stamps. And I love the fact that the die has like, it cuts the frame, but then each of the little elements in there, it's got a die for. So it's got a die for the ghosty, a die for the little house, a die for this. And many of you like the fussy cut, so you could cut this out. I'm not saying that you need it, but for me, I'm like, oh, I love the idea of the die. So that was kind of the catalyst for creating this. So I probably got these really years ago. I am a sucker for little frames that look like big frames. Like, I don't know if you remember Aaron Brothers. It was like an old school frame shop, but you can find frame shop, again, dollar store, thrift store, craft store. But framed Frights are 3x3. And 3x3 is a very common thing. So I love the idea that when it came to finding frames, 3x3 frames were everywhere, and I had a couple in the stash. But I wanted to create something not only that had some depth and dimension, but something that would have like a little bit of, well, surprise fright in it. So look at that. Look at this little ghosty lit up purple. How cool is he? Or taking the creepy manor, the creepy house, and like, ooh, glowing that in green. Just fun. Tiny lights for the win, really, when it comes to, I'll leave that on, to create that framed Fright. You don't have to.
I mean, look at how good you see them in here, and it's so bright.
Yeah, well, tiny lights for the win. It's just a lot of fun. So I'm just going to take you through like the process, okay? How I did this. This may not be your jam, but this is what the Hoopla is all about. It's about having fun with it. Mario, do me a favor. Would you grab me hand sanitizer in that bottom drawer? I just need to, if I don't get rid of that pink thumb, there's no way I'm going to be able to look at my thumb for the next couple hours, really. I'll be trying to do everything with my thumb tucked in because that's who I am. Look.
There you go.
You don't have to worry about people judging you, and you judge yourself the hardest. That's just what it is. But you know what? If you know it and you just get over it, you can move on. That is OCD at its top. And I will find that the older I'm getting, the more I just kind of let it win. I'm like, okay, let's move on.
Yeah, no reason to fight it. Breathe.
Sanitizer.
All is right in the world.
Okay, so here was the method. The method was, and I'll go through. The method was taking the image, stamping it, coloring it, which I'll do. I'll stamp and color, and then cutting out the elements. So this is where I got, but I'll show you kind of how we do the coloring first, and then we'll talk about the build. We'll talk about the different elements that we used with it. I do love them. Aren't they great? I bet they also look really great off. That's the thing. Like, you don't have to do tiny lights, but man, that just adds a serious creep factor to it. Gosh, I just love that. Okay, let's set these off to the side. The dies, let's see, do I need that? I don't need any of that yet. Okay, I'm gonna just put this over here for now. Okay, move this. There we are. Okay, so I'll bring those in frame. There we go. You guys doing okay? You can see that? Okay, I still need room to work. That's all. All right. So we'll start with the stamp, and I'll just demo the ghosty, but really you can do any of the ones that you want to do. That's just going to be easy. For this, you want to use some type of stamping tool. That's just a preference, okay? And I'll show you why in a minute. Doesn't mean you have to. It's just something that I want to do, okay? Any kind of stamping tool that you have is it's just going to work fine, okay? Don't put it on your stamp like I just did. All right. I've got some distressed watercolor cardstock. I've already cut down a little bit bigger than my stamp. I'm going to place that in the corner. I don't need to use all the magnets. I'll probably just use one, but I want to make sure that's in the corner. I do have some grip, so I always keep a piece of media grip in there. It just helps grip the cardstock even more. I'm going to place my stamp down. That's going to be good. I never like to get my stamp close to the edge, especially with this particular tool, because it just doesn't like to stamp as clear. Okay, I'm going to, if you have a platform, I like to just kind of push into that as I close. I pick up the stamp. All right, going to slide it down. Now we're going to ink it up. We're going to ink it up with something permanent. Something permanent. It could be archival. it could be, yeah, there's so many great black inks out there now. I do love Archival, but I got to say there's some others that, close rival. I have more than one now in my drawer. That, what is that? That Nocturne Claire, that's some pretty groovy stuff. All right, and ink it up. Move this down. I'm gonna, again, push into that little hinge right there. We're gonna give it some good pressure just to stamp with purpose. Okay, you don't need any CPR. Then we're just gonna pick this up. So this is my image as it is. All right, so far so good. There we go. Archival doesn't take too long to dry. It actually just takes maybe a minute or so. Oh, there it is. I just saw K, and that is the one. My gosh, that stuff is so good. I did find though when I use the Nocturne, even if it's dry completely, if I do any kind of die cutting or embossing in the folder, that ink will still transfer everywhere, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. But I'll show you really, like, Archival is going to work great for this technique just because of how we're going to treat it. Okay, I'm just going to move this off camera for right now, but I'll come back to it. But I don't need it right now because I'm going to focus on coloring. You can use whatever you want for coloring. I'm just going to grab, where are they? Watercolor pencils. I don't need many. I'm just going to use some distressed watercolor pencils, but you can use your Copics, your inks, whatever it is that you want to do. You do whatever you want. Okay, I need greens too. Where is it? All right, do I need reds? No. Okay. So whatever your technique is, okay, for this one, go for it. Some people like to use pencils direct. Some people like to, how long did I use heat? However long I just did, that's how long, Julia, I don't know how long it was, but that's how long it was. I think it was just a few seconds really on watercolor paper. So whatever's gonna work for you. All right, I've got mine sorted by color. I'm gonna put some blue here, and I'll put my grays off to the side. Just some different colors. Now again, you can work with color however you want to work with them. Some people like to make a palette, some people go direct. I do like a little bit of both. So I'm just gonna take some Forest Moss. I always find just a good rule of thumb is if I color where the black is, I find that that's going to be my biggest concentration of color, and then I can blend it out. I'm also going to take just a little bit of peeled paint back here. I have no idea. I am not the one to give coloring advice. Let's just be super clear on that. All right, then so I've got some green. See, just some scribbly bits. I haven't colored in anything really. Then I'll take a little gathered twigs. Maybe I'll do that for the tree, but maybe you want your tree to be gray and pumice stone and, you know, who knows? But I'm just going to put a little bit of brown just because I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I will use some pumice stone. I like the fact, let me grab this one. There we go. Pumice stone right here on this little monument. So I'm coloring that with a little pumice. So you can see it's just lines of color at this point. You can always go back and add more color. Now, for my background, I'm just going to start with my water brush, and I always like to get my brush primed, meaning, there you go. See that little bit of water in my hand? That's good enough. I only want to squeeze it until there's water coming out because I don't want the brush to flood. I really love the idea of a good water brush that has a very detailed bristle. This is a distressed water brush, but if you have another water brush, use it, all right? I'm going to start with the sky, and then I'll come down to these. I don't know why, I just do it, but it doesn't really matter is my point. For the sky though, I don't want to color direct because I feel like I have just too much to blend. So I'm just taking the water brush and going right across the pencil, and I'm just picking up some color. And that's going to allow me just to create like some muck, some type of stormy sky. This is a little ice spruce. And I'm being careful when I get around the tree that I don't go over where the brown is. But see how like it just creates a little soft gray. You don't have to overthink it. And you can repeat that with whatever colors. If you want a little bit bluer, maybe I'll go in with some stormy sky. That's going to give me a little bit more blue tone. But it doesn't take much when you take the water brush and kind of go over it. To clean off the brush, I tend to go back onto my glass mat because that'll remove some of the color. Now, let's say, see that? Let's say you're like, oh, it's too pretty of a day. I want it to be a little bit muckier. Remember with the watercolor pencil, you can always just go in and just dab some water in an area that you want and touch it with a paper towel, and it's going to lift off that color, okay? So I think that's probably why I like to color with this medium. It just makes it a little easier. It's more forgiving. And then I'm going to take a little bit of purple. And I did that just because, like on this guy, I'll shut it off. See, there's some purple there. There you go. You can kind of see in the light. See, there's just a faint purpley haze in the sky. And I just wanted that because, well, he's going to light up purple. He's cool though, right? I'll leave him lit up. Well, because they just look good like that. Okay. Let me put this back in. Okay. Okay. Again, just pick that up. Don't overthink things. Because if you know how to color, man, that is a superpower. I just like to have fun. I don't really overthink it. But I definitely like to work with something that I find is just more forgiving for me. So that's good for a sky. Just some purpley, bluey muck. Leave a little white space so it kind of looks a little cloudy. You could paint a moon in there if you want to. I even think I did a little moon on that one. I'll show you. And then I'm going to go in where I had that pencil, and I'm just going to follow the lines. I'm using just the very, very tip of this water brush. That's what I love about the detailer. And I don't mind coloring a little bit outside the lines if I find that I'm getting too much color, or if I find that I'm not even moving the color. I'll often wipe it on the glass because that's going to just get more water up in the bristles, and it's also going to clean off any color that might be there. I'm just going to move that little pumice stone, and I'll show you all the blending, but you can really see that I'm not being very particular. Like on the greens, the fact that I did all those other pencils, I'm just using a wet brush and mopping over it, and I feel that the pencils that I chose are giving me the shadows and highlights that I want. So see where it's like already dark and already light? That's the pencil. That's not me. That's just taking a dark pencil and going over the dark lines, and taking a light pencil and going over the light areas, and zippity-doo, you're done. So I don't have to worry about like the light is coming from the north side, and I can't think like that. I wish I could, but I can't. Next, I'm going to take a little antique linen, put that on the skulls. I'll even take white. I have white separate, doesn't fit in the tins. And I'll put that over the skulls as well. Now you can also do white on a ghostie if you want, because you are going to need to stamp this twice. And I'll show you that in just a second. But for the sake of this ghost, I'm not too worried about it. Then I'm going to do a little antique linen color over the top. Okay. So that's what I have. And to me, that's good enough. Because I'm going to put it in a frame, you don't need to color the frame. I did color these frames initially, and then when I put it in the frame, it covered it up. And so, look, in my heart, I know I did a great job on that frame, even though you can't see it. Okay. So once this is done, we want this to be dry. Now, only you know how much water you use. So I'm just going to use a heat tool. And again, I like to just hold my paper up, just take a few seconds just to pass some heat over it, just to make sure that it's dry. You don't have to overheat anything. So what I'm going to do is take that color piece, and it's going to go back in. All right. So place it down. Now, I'm going to be honest, you know, doing this, taking it out, like, I don't know why. I have a pretty good success rate, but sometimes, like even when I was doing this the other day, I went to stamp it and it's like, it didn't even line up. And I said to him, I'm like, what happened? He's like, I have no idea. Maybe I didn't have it lined up initially before, but I put it back in. My stamp never lost its place. And I'm going to ink this up again with archival, okay? And sometimes it does, but I find that if I always push in on the hinge, because I do think this has a little bit of play, and so I feel like when I just press in, I seem to get more consistent results. But hey, this could be good, this could be bad. So I've just inked up the stamp with archival again. So I want you to kind of see it before and after. So there's the before. It looks good. It might look worse in just a second. But now I'm just going to stamp again. Not so much with as much pressure or purpose, but I'm just going to do a second layer. But look at
that, you did it not like yesterday.
Look at the difference. And look at how that color, the black, became like, boom, super, super intense. And that is because watercolor pencils are still a pigment. And so when you color with the pigment, it tends to dull down your black image. It just does. And so by stamping a second time over the top of the pencil, your color is still there, but all of your black detail comes back. So that's why, to me, it is worth that second stamping, because I think that it makes a big difference. And that's also why, like, you know, we talked about other black ink pads and, oh, this is the greatest. But if you do a lot of double stamping, it really doesn't matter. As long as you have a tone of black that you like, you know, where it's not blue or purple or whatever, That's why I really like archival, because it does dry very crisp with a lot of detail, and it doesn't seem to wick out. But play around. It will work with other inks. But that double stamping is great for coloring with pencils, but also coloring with paint, because it gives you a completely different effect, because it's almost like it brings the detail back in. Okay. So then while this is in here, because we're going to need a ghostie, we're going to stamp a ghostie. Now, if it was something that you were going to color, you could have done both of your stamps at the same time, you know, meaning like, oh, if it's the house, I know I need to color, but you really don't need to color the ghostie unless you want to shade it in gray or white. I have no idea. But just so you know, you're going to stamp. And so even this with the ghostie, because that's why I didn't ink the whole stamp, I'm just inking where the ghost is. I want to have that same definition. So even if I'm not going to color, I'm still going to go in and do that second stamping, just so, see the difference? You get just that crisp detail of our ghost. Okay, so now I can just take this off. Super easy to clean. That's all I do with archival. I don't use any cleaner. I like my stamp is clean. It is clean like that. And then we take that off. Okay, put that in, put that away. Okay, so far so good. Put that over there. There we go. All right. So, whoop, I think I just hit my little ghosty guy. Okay, so this is what we've got. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to die cut the frame, and you're going to die cut your layer, whatever that is, whether that's a ghost, whether that's the little house, whatever. Here's the whole trickery part that comes in, and this is something that, like I said, there's some things that I know I can just demo from start to finish, and there's others that you just need to do it. You just need to work it yourself to kind of understand what you're going to do. Okay. A lot of people, because I did see some comments about the second blurred stamping. The key really on that second layer is don't over ink it and don't over pressure it. Just literally like push it down and stamp it and lift it up, knowing that you're just kind of hitting the highlights. Because I find myself, when I kind of do a little CPR pressure, it seems to almost shift the stamp enough to make it blurry. So just try that. Okay. So my solution for the frame, because I wanted to not only have something dimensional, but I also wanted to have, oh, I see what I did. I taped these to my glass mat. I wanted to put tiny lights in. Let me get rid of this foam square. There we go. So the solution, because you could put something into a frame, that's easy. But if you want to have tiny lights in there, you need to do something with this battery pack. And sometimes it'll fit in the frame, depending on the frame that you find. I couldn't find one that worked. So my solution was just a mini canvas. These are available anywhere, dollar store, craft store. These are 3x3. So I just took that, painted the edge black, because I knew it would kind of stick out from the frame. I also like the fact that if you are going to put this on the wall, it kind of brings that frame out, makes it more of a gallery frame, so I didn't mind that. But this recess gives me a place to put this battery pack. It just kind of tucks right in there. Now I did have a little bit of foam tape, so you can use it to stick that in, but it is designed to, like, you can pop it out because that's where your switch is, you know, to turn it on and off. So that's why I did the canvas. So the canvas thing was just easy. So what I did is I painted this black. I took my background. I glued it on to the canvas, squared up. You can use collage medium. You can use double stick tape. Use whatever adhesive you want. I just used distress collage medium. I flipped it over. I pushed the canvas just to make sure that this was nice and secure. Then the illumination. So same rules apply for the house. You have your house background, but then you have to see where you want to put your lights. Okay. This is one of those things. I even said this to Mario. This is the truth. I said it this morning. I'm like, how am I going to explain the purpose of tiny lights? And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, well, we've been selling tiny lights in Ideology for years. And every time I bring this up, it's the same stuff in the chat where people are like, no, you can't, that wastes it. And he's like, I think you just need to do it exactly what you just said. Here's the thing. Tiny lights were designed where you had a battery pack that's replaceable. You open this up and you can replace the batteries, an on and off switch, and a lot of lights. How many lights? I don't even know the light count. It was just lights because we wanted this that you could use it in vignettes. You can use it around a lot of different things, and you had enough lights to go around the project. But the reality is these were designed to always be custom cut. And I never understood why somebody would feel that if you cut off the majority of the lights, you were wasting them. I don't get that, because you're using the amount of light that you want for your project. So whether you're putting the whole strand in or just a few, if you put the whole strand in something like this thing, you could see it from space. And I don't think that's what we're going for. So this really only has 3 tiny lights in. So I take 1, 2, 3 lights. So there's my third light. And you're going to go in with your scissors. And we're going to cut that off. Bye-bye. So you want to save the end with the battery. If you cut off the other 3, that's not going to work. We just want this. And these are still going to work. They were always designed to work. They're designed to custom size. What do you do with this? Well, you can't light these up anymore, but maybe you want to use it as wire. Maybe you want to use it as some sort of trim. Maybe you want to use it as like tinsel. I don't really know, but don't think that you're wasting your tiny lights because you're cutting off most of them when you really only need 3 for the project. That's what that is, okay? That's the idea. So I knew I only wanted 3. So after this was glued down, I went in with a pokey tool and poked a hole, and I'll kind of show you the back of mine. I'll kind of, this one I ripped apart to show you the mechanics. I ripped that apart. You're going to feed the light in, and you're just going to decide how you can hide the lights underneath your image. So let me show you from our ghosty, okay? So there's the hole that I poked. So it was poked through the background, through this. I threaded the 3 lights in there. Then, let me pull this off. Then with those lights, I decided I want these lights to go up the ghost. I want like a light on his head. I think that kind of casts as like a weird little halo, but I like it. But I wanted one like kind of at the bottom, in the middle, and at the top. And how the lights are angled is up to you, right? You could have the bulbs pointing outwards. You can have them pointing up. I mean, really, it's completely up to you of how you want to do it. When I made it, but I knew I needed to show you how I did it, it's much easier is if as you're making it, you bend these down over the ghost that's on the bottom and you secure it. You can secure it with little dots of hot glue. Just don't hot glue over the bulbs, but you can hot glue the wire, use a craft pick to hold it down. You can use little bits of tape, whatever it is you want to do, but you will need to use foam adhesive because of the bulb. So let me shut these off just so you can see that. There you go. See the thickness of the bulb? You're going to need little foam squares. So you can find these little foam squares. I got these from Simon Says. They're just little dimensional foam, but you can cut up little foam adhesive, but you need foam to almost fill in the space in between the light bulbs. So notice there's no foam over the light bulbs. Don't do that. That'll cover up the light. But in between, and that's what's going to allow not only room for the light, but it's going to dimensionalize the ghost. Does that make sense? So you could attach the lights to this piece if you want, but really, like on the house, I just did it directly on the background. I put it down, I wired them, you can move them around. Because the wires, the nice thing about having the wired lights is once you work this through, you really can like manipulate the wires. So even though there's this much space in between the lights, see, you can just bend them to get them however you need them to be. It's incredibly forgiving. And that's the fun. So like on the house, see, now you can see I wanted a light here, here, and here. And if you wanted more than 3, I'm not saying, gosh, 3 is the limit. It's just something that just be mindful of how much light you put in what you wanted. I obviously wanted this closer to the top to kind of cast that like that freaky glow, just like I did on the ghost. And these, I put them a little further down because I wanted that to kind of be a little subtle. So you really do get to play around with even the effect of the lights with tiny lights. Anyway, once that's done, you can use more adhesive, you can use glue. Here's a little bit of just like double stick score tape, but I would probably do something stronger like red line tape. And then you line up your little element over the lights and everything, stick that down, and then you have that like illuminated, and it just lights up the whole background. Isn't that just fun? So fun. And then this thing, the cord in the back, I just tucked it around the edge, added some hot glue just to get most of it out of my way. And then I love that it fit in perfect on the diagonal. So they both fit in on the diagonal. It does allow a little space that you can get your finger in there and still work the switch. But if you didn't want that, you don't have to stick that in. A little foam square is all it's going to take. You can take it out, turn it on and off, and then just wedge it back in. But it's interesting that even the background of those 3x3 canvas panels was like made to order, that it fit the tiny lights. But I just think like this could go on an easel, this could hang on the wall. I mean, imagine just these hanging on the wall and they have that eerie glow. I love that. But that to me is what's super important to remember is don't Don't overdo it with the tiny lights because you think you're wasting them. Wasting them is not using them. That's what you need to remember. If
They
you
were designed to be cut
always,
and enjoyed.
always, yeah. But there's a lot. I mean, they pack a lot. There's things like even on the lantern where I've cut it down to 1, but it's a light with a switch. That's perfect. That's what it's for. So I hope
the
just
shorter the shorter the string, the more the battery.
that's true.
Anyway, because you're not doing as many lights. So
That's true.
see, that's a plus.
That's a plus. So those ideas, just giving you a way of like, it doesn't even have to be this set. My point is like sometimes look at your work and go, how would that look? I mean, you've seen me talk about this in numerous lives where I say how cool it is. Like, that's so great. You should frame that. I know Sharon did some cards one time. Like, these should go in a frame. Putting this in a frame, and you have to just, these I bought these years ago. So I don't even know where I got these. I buy frames all the time. I have a tub in the closet of little frames. I like them. You can find them at the craft store, the dollar store, the Goodwill, like so many places. It's just a 3x3 opening. Amazon has frames. Just find something that you like. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just wasting them that's it. Not using them is where you waste them. Okay, so the thing to keep in mind is how you want to embellish this. And that's what I wanted to say. I know these have sentiments, but I really loved just these ideology word plaques. So this is Haunted Memory, and it just totally reminds me of that because, see the little creep. Oh, see if you can find the little moon. It's painted in the tree. See, just that little yellow bit right there. There's a little moon watercolored in there. But that was like Haunted Memory. And then I love the ghost because it was like Curious Things, because I just think like the ghost is going to come around. So thing to keep in mind is these words. There are many of these that have come and gone in the world of ideology. This is old school. I did see some of these online. These are old Halloween ones. It had the Apothecary, Found Objects, Curious Things, and Bone Collector. It's a great pack. This was retired maybe 2 years ago, but I still saw several retailers that had this one. But other ideology ones, like newer ones, there's just going to be a whole different assortment of words. But altering them, super, super simple. I've showed this before, but I'm going to show you just how easy it is to alter any of these that have that raised or recess words, right? So Haunted Memory, Curious Things. Let's do Curious Things just because. The easiest thing is Distress Crayon. Now, do you have to use crayon? No, you can use acrylic paint. Acrylic paint works fine. But crayon, man, so easy. You can do it in like a dreamy blue, a ghosty green, a purple, a gray, or white, picket fence. Whatever it is that you want to use. I just use white, but here's the idea. You take your crayon, you scribble it in there, almost like a cheese grater. It grabs on those raised letters, just grabs on some of that crayon, and you just scribble it in there. Then you're going to take your finger, your thumb, whatever, and you just start pushing it around in there. See how it just like fills in? And you can move it. The crayon is movable. You can always go back and add more to it. So if you want like white inside there, see that area? You're just going to scribble some and just push that in. See how nice that is? It moves around really, really easy. To me, it's so much easier. I remember I used to do this with paint, but it's so much easier. I can go around the edges, push some of that white in. Okay, once you're happy with it, here's the thing to note. If you have crayon on your fingers like I do, just clean it off. It just cleans off with water. Crayon doesn't stain because it is a water reactive pigment, so just a little bit of water and it's off. But you want to do this next part with some clean fingers. Then you're just going to gently go over this with a clean finger, and that's going to take off any of that color like from the raised part of the letters to bring back that metallic if you want to remove some. So see like under that IOUS, if I want to clean that, I'll just take the clean finger and push in and see how I can just clean out that little track. Super forgiving. Once this dries, you don't have to worry about it moving at all. It'll be on there. Then I did the same thing with screw heads. These are ideology. They look like little screws. They're all flat on the back. They're just little gluers. They have a little Phillips and flathead screw head on there, but I did the same thing. I picked them up, I smeared in a little bit of crayon, and then I took some collage medium, put a little bit of glue on that little raised edge, and glued those little screw heads on there. This way, it looks like these are screwed onto the frame. But in reality, this is just, I love taking things apart because it's like, what? Because you really don't have to overthink it. But if you use good stuff, that's just foam squares. Why? Because foam squares, to me, it was a lot less stressful than trying to glue it on this bevel. Because when I tried to liquid glue, they kept sliding. and foam squares for the win. So I just kind of center it. It does allow you to move it. And these, I mean, these little suckers, they grab, right? So see, it kind of was right on the bend, and you just push it down, and there you go. So that is how I did these little plaques with the machinery heads. I thought it was just a fun way that, I don't know, a fun way that we can enjoy just how to create with stuff, right? Just using stuff that you have. And you might have all sorts of different embellishments, but it's a great way that you can alter things. And even down to the frames, if you don't find something you like, paint it. Use alcohol ink, use foundry wax, use your inks or your mixatives or alloys, or do anything to them, but be on the hunt for 3x3 frames if you really like the idea of the framed Frights, because I just thought, like, what a great, not only decor piece, but also a great gift to give a Halloween loving friend. It's awesome. And the fact that the batteries are replaceable, I love that. And I do love the eerie glow of like purple and green, but they're cute without. So even if you're like, I'm not going to go through the hassle of lighting it up, then don't. But still, you know, that's where, you know, dyes or even fussy cutting really come into mind. Think about your stamps. Look at your stamps and think about, like, what do I want to frame? What do I want to frame of any of my stamps? Because to me, that is the best part. So yeah, that's an idea. All right, I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. I do love that. All right. Perfect. Good fun. I do love that. I love the idea of good fun. Let me hand you that. Let me hand you these things. So much stuff.
So much stuff.
Well, you know, that's the idea side of it. Okay.
Good.
Cute, huh? Yeah, just going to clean up the pencils. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
All right.
Oh,
Let
someone
me shut
asked
these
how
up.
you adhered this to in there. I don't know if you said that or not.
How the frame?
Yes.
I just glued the frame in. Actually, you can even use tape. See, I just used a little bit of, see that little tape? I just used some score tape. That's it. So like this, I don't mind showing you the mechanics. That's what it's all about. Makers, you got to share the love. So there's the canvas. That's what it's like by itself. I just went in with a little bit of score tape, you know, because it was skinny enough for the track. But again, you can use glue if you wanted to. That's absolutely fine to do that. Oh, I love the idea of holiday scenes. That would really be pretty, Carrie. So use whatever adhesive you want, because I think when people say, oh, you have to use this adhesive, you have to use what you have. That's what you have to use. There you go. Just stick that in. I just find that certain things I love glue and certain things I love tape. And I don't know why that is. I just think that, you know, I was just gluing like paper to resin. I thought that the tape would be just fine. So there you go. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. I got to take those. I'm just going to put these back, close them up.
Want anything else?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Okay. I say that again and again, and I do mean that you need to use what you have. All right, let's move. Where did I find these? Oh, there they are. Good. How are we doing, Mario? No, this would be great if this could stay. Thanks. I know you're trying to clean up, but
sure,
please leave it. Okay.
All I'm doing is making room for more stuff.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Get rid of the ink. All right. So, moving on. You doing all right, Mario?
Doing great.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. All right. Here we go. Next up, we're going to talk about these. Why? Because I like them, and I don't remember which live it was, but it was definitely during a Halloween live. At the end, I must have just started opening my blah, blah, blah and talked about bones. Did I go to the dollar store and buy a lot of these? Yes.
Yes.
Do I know the count? I really don't. But I had an entire bin of bones, and I remember people saying, what are you going to do with the bones? Well, I just found them to be very cool. I think it's so good. You can do many things with these. They are plastic, but you could do, like, if you wanted these to glow in the dark, you could do grit paste glow, or you can do glow in the dark paint. You could do a lot of things, but I wanted to share with you, like, the ideas that I had for something silly like bones, because I like to decorate. So the first thing that I thought would be the obvious is filling a jar with bones. This cool, what I found to look like an old kind of mercantile, apothecary, candy shop, whatever you want to call it, jar, because it's squared. Would you believe this was from the dollar store? It really was. This year, I couldn't believe such a cool looking jar was from the dollar store, and to me it was like made to order because it fit the height of the bones and all of that. Then, as luck would have it, I had a bone collector band from that earlier set. I'm like, snap, there's a bone collector one. So I did just like what I did on the frame, and I did the bone collector. But let me share this little tip with you. All right, I'm going to take this out. Let me grab this. You guys, if you saw how much stuff we have going on in here,
it's the little space that you work in.
It's quite frightening, but it is. Okay, so the bone collector, I did the same thing with the crayon, and I did the little hardware. I did add a little lock and key. This is just alcohol ink. You already know how I did that, don't you? Yes, you do, because of what I said on the jack-o'-lanterns. It was just, I dripped on a bunch of, this is smudge and mushroom alcohol ink. And then I just sprayed it with rubbing alcohol, and it just created that look. So see, just like what I did with the pumpkin, I did it on the metal lid, which was cool. But this glass jar had like a slight arch to it, and I really wanted this to go around the edge. So here's what you do. If you have any of these are made out of like a zinc alloy. Okay, it's not a steel thing. It's just a little bit. But I do love smudge. These are found you can find these really at most craft stores in the jewelry aisle. It's a bracelet plier. So if you see, it's like 2 Teflon pieces. I've had these forever. And what it does, it's designed to curve or bend metal. I'll show you. So I needed this to have that slight bend. But if I were to try to do this by hand or over the edge of a table, it would either create like an angle or just something, well, pretty bad. So what you do is you can see how it fits in. You start on the end and you just give it a squeeze. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. Just go gentle at first. Little squeeze, move, little squeeze, little squeeze, little squeeze, little squeeze. So not even all the way. And you can see already it created that angle. And all I did was just took the jar and see, oh wow, that's perfect. The first shot. Haha. Perfect. So I knew that, see, it fit. I mean, it's like there's no rock and roll. If it was too rocky, I would straighten it up, or if it needed to go more, it could go more. So this, again, this one, double stick tape, just double stick tape, stick it to the jar. You could glue it if you want, but glue is going to like slip inside. Tape is going to work. If you wanted this to have more of an angle, because maybe you really wanted to make a bracelet out of it, they sell different, I guess, different arches for this, but I'll just show you how we can actually make this really, really roundy. So now I'm actually squeezing it to make contact, and I'm using this all the way along the edge. So I go from end to end, squeezing each time. Now you can see quite the angle. But again, that's more for like a bracelet. It's going to sit on your wrist better. But this, see, now it's going to sit off the edge. And if that happens, then you can just place it down and just kind of like press in the center with your fingers and kind of flatten it out. But I just thought that was a great way, even if you're not doing bones in a jar. Jars are very cool. I filled up a lot of jars with Halloween candy as a decor thing, but you can take any of your embellishments and put it on stuff. But really, $1 for the bones, $1 for the jar, well, $1.25, let's just say it. But you know, in my world, I like to round down. I never round up. I always round down. If it's $4.99, it's $4. Mario's like, in the rest of the world, it's really $5. And I'm like, nope, the first number, that's what it is. It's $4. But yeah, it's cute. So how do we grunge up the bones? Let's talk about that. I did talk a little bit about this last year because there's a lot of different options, but I'll just show you. So last year, when I talked about the Hoopla, the bones that they did last year were horrible. The color was this weird yellow, and I talked about that. I found on social media, people were talking about how they can do skeletons and stuff with this paint. It's heirloom white. I had to spray paint the other bones because they were a terrible color. This year, they're a really good color. This is how they come this year. So I still wanted to use the spray paint, and here's why. You can either use spray paint or use acrylic paint for this step. But what you want to do to the bones is just get some sort of paint splatter on there. Let me just see if the camera's going to pick it up, because it's almost the same color. Oh, snap. Let's see. Gosh. It's so subtle. Oh, wait, maybe this. No. You can't even really see it because it's the same color. But you just splatter on some paint. So like we went outside, just took the can of spray paint and literally like 3 sprays over the whole thing. And you're just getting, because you're not painting them, you're just adding texture. I'll show you what I mean. That little bit of texture, what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to grunge up the bones. Because if you look inside the jar, see how they're kind of grungy? Okay, maybe you don't want grungy. Maybe you want the bones to be cleaner. It's pretty easy. But we're just going to take, again, distressed crayon. This is going to be walnut. But you can use any color. And you're just going to smear some of it on. Now, you don't have to do the paint thing. The paint is just, you could use grit paste. You could do anything. It's just that by adding a couple dots of paint, it just gives us stuff to grab onto. See how it's just like it's catching in certain areas? You would feel it. It's not very textural. I know I'm not making sense, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Once you smear on some brown, put a little bit kind of on the ends because it has, see, inside where you can't get any color. And then I have a blending brush that's just dedicated to crayon. It's not one that I use for ink at all. Then I'll take a little bit of water, give it a quick spray, a little tap tap, and then you just kind of push that crayon in. See the brush, a little bit of water. These crayons are water reactive. So see how I was able to get color down in there? That's how. So anytime you have something that you need to just work some of that grunge in, okay. So far this looks terrible. Don't worry about it. Maybe you, oh, see, now you can see some of those little specks. See, they're barely there. And do this to all the crayon, or all the bones. However many you want to do. Mario happens to do, no kidding, a few hundred because I bought a lot. Because there's like in the living room, there's literally a pile of bones under a very cool skelly. But once it's done, and you did this to all the bones, you can do this the same day, or you could come back the next day. It doesn't really matter. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a damp paper towel. This is what the bone looks like. So this is what it looks like new. This is what it looks like with a little splattering of paint, not much. And this is what it looks like with crayon. A little damp paper towel, and then you're just going to start kind of wiping away at some of the areas. Bringing back that original color, leaving some of the shadow in there, leaving it into those little crevices. And once you're happy with it, you're done. That's it. And you set it aside. It's done. It won't come off on your hands. It's just a done deal. And that's really what we did for the grungy bones in this jar. Everyone needs a jar of bones. And quite honestly, as a maker, you could just open this up and now you have bones that you can just, well, you can pull out and use. Use for whatever you want. It's just cool. But yeah, who knew such a cool glass jar existed? Because it is. It's vintage. Yeah, it's really fun. Now, if you're not into the grungy part of the bones and you don't think that you want to put your bones in a jar, maybe you're on the more, I don't know, sophisticated side. Here, let me move this. I have so much stuff everywhere. How about having like a little treat? Some little vintage, I don't know, some vintage sugar bones. I think this is really pretty. This is a vintage bottle that I got from Mr. Cup, but I love it. Put it on a little tray. It's a great way to show the bones, and I love that they are sugary, beautiful, almost like diamonds. They look good enough to eat, don't they? They absolutely do. Well, what is this? Well, it's rock candy is what it is, and it's so easy to do. So I'll show you how you can like create these sugar bones. And this is very textural. This is very different, but I love the look of these. And I think, you know, if you have a vintage tray, you could have a crystal candy dish, whatever. How beautiful is that to have in your house of like these sugar bones? They do look good enough to eat, but don't. Okay, very, very simple. Let's show you how it works. Okay, I'm going to take a, can you grab me just a clear container real quick, please, Mario? All mine are done.
One of these?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Okay, just to show you, because it's super easy to do, but it just takes a little process. Who knew you could have so much fun with a $1.25 thing of bones?
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this one we're going to need some resist spray. Now, could you do this with collage medium, glossy accents? Yes to all of those, but resist spray is just going to be the quickest way that we can make these sugar bones, because they look like rock candy. They're delicious. So these are not painted at all. This is like straight out of the package is what we got. So I'm just going to let's take a couple of basic bones right out of the package. Have a container. In that container, you're going to want to have some glitter, some rock candy. So I'm just dumping some of that in. There you go. See, it already looks like sugar. Keep some in the jar. You're going to want to, I know I saved it. Man, my glove. Here it is. Here it is. See, I lost it in part one. That's the other glove. There we go. Sugar bones for the win. I hear you. You guys are telling you, if you found those, you're going to love it. Okay. Glove it up because you're going to want to. It does get pretty sticky, messy. You can use a paper towel. You can use wax paper. You can use anything you want underneath this. It doesn't really matter. Maybe I'll do a little bit of both. I don't know, because it just gets messy. You're going to take resist spray, and we're going to spray the bones with resist spray. This is going to act as the glue, okay? You can do several at a time because you do have to spray the resist spray, and that's why if you have something like wax paper, see how it kind of goes on like purpley? See it on my fingers? It dries crystal clear, but for some reason on black, it just looks kind of iridescent. But you're going to spray the bones, and you're going to use your glove because you want to spray the ends. And that's what's just going to allow you to kind of move the resist in there. Isn't that wild on a glove? Crazy. All right. Then take the wet bones, put it into the glitter, cover it with more glitter, little shake and bake on the bones, kind of move it around. Now here's the thing, it needs to dry in here. That's what's crazy. So you can keep going until you kind of run out of room for the bones and let them dry in the glitter for, I'm going to say about 10 minutes. That's really good. The reason is because this is so liquid, I mean, it's already very, very sticky, but because it's so liquid, if you pick this up now, which I will, and you touch it, see how that just wipes right off? Because it's so fluid, you're just better off letting it dry on there. And when it dries, it'll dry good. Then, after 10 minutes and you take them out, do it again. So take the glittery bones, put them back down, resist spray, although you don't need as much this time. You don't need to move it around like I did. And then drop them back. So you're kind of giving them a double layer of sugar, and that's how you build those little nuggety bits. But it's easy. It's literally resist spray and rock candy. Simple, right? Couldn't be easier. Okay, that's it. That's really the trick to sugar bones. I think that creating those.
Talking about chicken because you said shake and bake.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I don't know why I liked it. Probably all the salt in it.
Shake and bake and nuggety bits.
Yeah, well, you know, I just think it's just fun. I think when you kind of remember things, like even the process, it's like leave it in there. Don't go in and take it out. It doesn't take very long. I will set that aside to dry. It doesn't take long. But now I just think, like, who doesn't want a little treat of sugars?
It's
yes?
almost 3 o'clock.
Woo. Oh, nice. It's coffee time. Around here, 3 o'clock every day. Well, I see it now. My gosh, it's almost 10 to 3. Yeah, we do a little Starbucks. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
A little afternoon caffeine. I will.
You're having 3 o'clock
But it's 3 o'clock. Yeah. Anyone that knows us, it's like, yeah, that's it. All right. So sugar bones. Okay. There's one other idea. I just love that. We got one other idea. We're in the home stretches, and this one just is one of those wild ones. This one, I'll say, it just sent me on a path of absolute fun. I couldn't believe, honestly, how much fun I had doing it. I was on YouTube. I was on Pinterest. I was on cooking blogs. I was everywhere. A lot of mistakes, not gonna lie, but in the end, I'm happy with the result. Let me just clean off that little bit of crayon right there, and I'll show you what we did. You know, when it comes to just creative making ideas, that it is all about the creative play. And one of the things that I think that is important for me as a kid is to embrace my childhood. And one of the things I loved about my childhood was the sweets. My grandmother would make, she did popcorn balls, we talked about that, but I really loved caramel apples. Now, if you watch the Ideology live, I made little caramel apples inspired by Tammy B, who took the little Ideology pumpkins and made them. And I thought for the bones, I'm like, wouldn't that be fun if the bones were like the sticks of a caramel or candy apple? And I'm like, oh, that'd be so fun. I wonder if I can make faux caramel apples. So I went down the whole path of how to make them, and they are so easy. I will admit that the tutorials out there are a little, well, they're just random. Let me just say, some people just swear by their technique and others don't. And I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong. You need to find something that works for you. We did. It was trial and error, but the end result is super fun. So I'm going to show you how to make these. I love them because they can go into, you can use them obviously year round. If you do a Halloween tree, you can hang them. but they're like so realistic, yummy, good. And I love that both sides of the bones work for the different size apples. So we ready to get to that? Oh, that's got to be fun. Okay, let's talk about how we can make these. I'll bring a couple in just so you can see them there. We have a green one. That's beautiful.
No, they're not real apples.
Oh, though they're not real.
Apples.
No, this is fake. This is, you can't, yeah, if this was real, you couldn't use this year round. These are faux. Faux decor. Bones. I guess you could put the plastic one in a real apple. It's plastic, but no, this is about making decor. Some decoration that you can just have in your house. Oh my gosh, year round. Here we go.
Fake apples.
Fake apples. Please. Fake apples. Okay. Oh, let's bring this in. My. Did you ever think that, see, one idea inspires another? When I had such a good time making those little tiny, and I only made one for that cabinet of curiosities. And I'm like, this is so cool. And it was using vintage collage medium. And I know vintage collage medium has been retired. So I needed to find a way that I can do it on a much larger scale. That was the idea. I think that's what it was. Obviously, I made the cauldron bigger and now I did this bigger. So first thing was to find apples. So I found these at Hobby Lobby, but you can find them really online. I saw that Amazon sells them, all of that. These were really inexpensive. These were $4.99. See? Mario, $4.99. So $4, $4 a bag, $5 a bag. And you got different sizes. You got two different sizes. You got like this, and then you have that like mini size. And these are foam. They're styrofoam. But again, look at the craft store. I heard like the dollar store sells big apples, but I just wanted something a little smaller. Okay. And I love the colors, but I did look online, and there was a lot of places that sold faux styrofoam apples. So that's what I did. So I'll take a couple of those out. We'll do a red and a green one. Okay. Then next, because we wanted to do the bone for the handle, you can't really use the bone as it is, because that means this end is going to need to go into the styrofoam and it's going to create a giant hole. Okay. So we just cut these off, and Mario just had a pair of like garden tools, and you can see they're plastic, and he just chopped it off. So it wasn't like a Dremel or anything. It wasn't scissors either, but something that you can chop that off. Okay. So that's what you need to do. Then we're going to work on like putting these in. But before I do the assembly, I just want to go through the supplies that you need. So you're going to need apples. You're going to need a stick. Maybe you don't want to use bones. Maybe you want to use a stick from outside. Maybe you want to use like a hideous tongue depressor. Go ahead, whatever. But I would never use that. But whatever's going to work, that just something that you want for the handle. And again, we didn't do any grunging to this, although you could. I just love the contrast of it, and to me, it made it look really, really great. Okay, for the caramel sauce, you're going to need Mod Podge gloss. Okay, you could buy this in any craft store. You can buy whatever volume. We happen to have a coupon, which is why we got Mario's senior discount. Right, so we got this big tub, but you can see that like we used half, and that would be like this much experimentation, this much for the actual project. So I would say like, the regular 16-ounce thing you get in the craft store is more than enough, because not only do we make them, we still have some left. So you don't need something this much, but hey, you have a coupon, use it. Okay, so how do you make it? Well, back to the dollar store, and we got these containers that have a twist-on lid. You want something that's going to be airtight if you're going to make the sauce, because if you don't use it, you want to keep it so you can use it again and again. And all it is using Mod Podge and acrylic paint. And this is where I'm telling you, the videos sent me on the craziest goose chase of like, it's this much of this paint and 2 drops of this. And I'm like, no way. Like, I'm not going to do that. So Vintage Photo is the closest thing to the color that I wanted. And all it really was determining how much paint to put in there. And I can't give you a recipe. I can't say like a cup of this and a cup of that. And again, I encourage you that if you happen to watch any videos, don't follow those either. Just do your own thing. Do your trial and error. So what you're going to do is you're just going to pour some Mod Podge in a disposable container. You're going to add some acrylic paint. I wouldn't recommend ink, because ink becomes way too dark because of you're dipping these twice. So paint is going to be your best thing. You're going to squeeze some in, and you're going to start mixing it up. What you need to remember, and this is where the whole trial and error, you can see that Mod Podge is so much more fluid than collage medium. That is why I couldn't dip even if I had a jar of vintage collage medium. I could never dip the apple and get it this runny. I needed it. And more importantly, let's face it, this stuff is beautiful. Look how shiny it is. It is like shiny caramel. It's perfect. So squeeze in some paint, stir it up, and here's my advice. Put some in knowing that you want it to be lighter than the color of the caramel. So let me just show you kind of the side by side, the best I can on camera. Do you see the color difference? It is significant. So just get it to like a pale color, smear some of it on a piece of paper, maybe a piece of watercolor paper or just white cardstock, and let it dry. That's going to give you your caramel color. Just let it dry for, maybe it's going to take 5 minutes or so on just a piece of paper. That's your go-to color. The best part is that, you know, if you need a little bit more or you made it too dark, you can add more Mod Podge, that sort of thing. So you can't totally screw it up unless you used up your whole bit of Mod Podge at the beginning. But every apple could have a kind of its own personality. But just to give you the idea, you want the contrast to be significant. It's going to be much lighter than you think it should be, which was me. And yeah, just like Lynn said, just like house paint, it always dries darker, okay? So you just mix that up. That's it. It's paint and Mod Podge. Nothing else. Nothing else. You don't need to put anything else in it. It's vintage photo, distress paint, Mod Podge, and you're set. All right. So now on to, I'm just going to tap this off. We'll clean this off. I used a spoon. Why? Because I can't use a craft stick. I just can't. They're gross to me. Okay. I'll just wipe that off. Clean this off. Gotta clean my hands off. There we go. Okay. Nice. Good. All right. How we doing, Mario? Good?
So good.
I snuck in a little sip. I'm not going to lie. I can't have a coffee there and not enjoy it.
The apples, the bones.
Oh, listen. Oh, I'm glad you guys like it. I wanted to do something fun. I told you, the Hoopla is one of those things where it just lets me play. It doesn't have to be about like, oh, this is the new ideology or the new physics. It's like, this is just a fun thing. And it actually uses some stuff. I mean, I'm using distress paint, right? At least for this one. So what you need to do on the apple is you need to take this little stem out. I just took a pair of pliers, grab the end, pull it out. It is plastic. It's got like little barbs in there. So just take that out. Keep in mind that these are styrofoam. So you can just be pretty aggressive with it. Then next we're going to take a screwdriver. Why a screwdriver? Well, because when you cut off the bone, you want something that's going to kind of mimic the shape of what you're putting in. So if you use something circular like an awl or an ice pick, it's going to give you a round hole, and we really want a flat hole. So a screwdriver, that's what's going to work. And you're just going to hold this. It is weird. It feels like it's never going to work. I'm holding it onto my body because I really don't want to impale my hand. And I'm just like wiggling it back and forth. But see how it already went into the apple? That's it. You just push that in and take it out. Same rules apply. Flathead screwdriver in, wiggle it. I'm just kind of going back and forth until there's almost like a little, I guess like a little film around there, whatever that color is. Maybe it's like a vinyl or something. I don't know. But I don't go all the way to the round. See, it's still to the flat. That's it. Because we want a flat for a flat. And ice pick is only going to give you a round pokey. And a round pokey for a flat is still, when you try to put this in, you don't want to destroy the apple. You don't want the apple to like implode. Okay. There we have it. Then we're going to take a little bit of hot glue. We're going to put a little dot of hot glue in there because we want to put that bone in. We want the bone to stick. So now you're just going to kind of work that in, get it the height you want, done. Don't worry about it standing up. The caramel is going to add a counterbalance because when I did these, I'm like, these are never going to stand, but that's going to add weight to the bottom. So same thing here. Little squirt of glue. And that glue is actually going in that hole that we just blasted with the screwdriver, and put that in. Done. Easy. Simple. Okay. Yeah, they just look delicious. Okay, it gets better. So we're going to do the caramel dipping. Now these, in order to get them this finish, not saying you have to, but again, we did a lot of trial and error. The first time I tried to do it in a single dip, and I'll be honest, many people said, I don't recommend trying it in a single dip. And I was like, amateurs, watch this. A single dip is not good because if you want to add nuts to it, which we'll talk about that in a second, a single dip is just going to pull everything off of this and it will not look good. So do the double apple thing. Let me tell you this. These require 24 hours of drying time. Wah, want. That's the only downside to this craft, because you really want this stuff to set before you do it. Now, when I say 24 hours, that really just means like if you do them today, you can put them overnight and you can go back to them tomorrow morning. So maybe it is more like 12 or 15, but the longer they dry, the more durable they are. So I do recommend a 24-hour drying time. All you're going to do is get a piece of wax paper, recommend maybe putting down even some cooking spray on the bottom, because this stuff, it really wants to stick to whatever you put it on. And if you don't care about the bottom, which I don't, parchment paper is going to work just fine. You'll just rip it off. But all you're going to do is take the apple and you're just going to dip. You just dip it in. And depending on how deep it is, you can kind of move this to the side, and we're just going to spin the apple, kind of get it as far up the apple as you want. Pick that up, shake off that little bit of excess. You don't have to scrape it or anything. Just look at that beauty. I love the little drippage. And you're just going to set it on there. And you can have an entire sheet of wax paper. You might have some sort of parchment. I don't recommend even a craft sheet. I tried that the first time thinking, oh, I have a craft sheet. That wasn't good either. You definitely really want that, all right? Then we're just going to go in, move this around, move this, move this. That's a good dip. Shake that off. Get any of that excess drippage off. It's still going to do its thing, and set it on the paper. Maybe I want to move this one over a little bit. There you go. And then you would just set this out to dry, and you could do all the first batch in one, and you're good to go. All right. So after they come back, we'll talk about the nuts. So just imagine it was next day and we already had a batch dry. I used all mine. I couldn't stop making them. Okay. We'll talk about the nuts. Now, Mario wanted to just chop up real peanuts or whatever, and he was like, I'll spray them. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want any like food stuff sitting around. So this is what a lot of people recommended. I'd never heard of it before, and I thought it was really interesting. This is called K-Cob. Okay, it's Kaykob. If you Google it, you'll find it at any pet stop. These look like nuts. It's actually corn. It's like corn cob that's ground up. It's not kitty litter or anything like that. It literally looks like peanuts. It's got the color. I did nothing to them. K-Cob, Kaykob. Now, you'll buy a big giant bag of it. It won't be much of anything.
You'll have enough for 10 lifetimes.
It's really, so if you have a friend, like, you don't each need a bag. I'm telling you, the bag is massive, and like, you'll have it for life. Mario's going to use it to like probably sprinkle on the icy sidewalks when it snows, because it's just corn cob. I mean, it's just going to go in. I think it's for like bird cages or stuff. I mean, they do call it some type of litter, but it's not kitty litter. It's definitely corn cob. And that is really all it is. So what you would do is, after you dipped, imagine I already had a layer dry and this was my second dipping. So I would have done exactly the same thing on the second dipping. Dip it pretty close to the line. It doesn't matter if you go above or below, because it blends in perfectly. Then you're just going to take the nuts and you're just going to sprinkle them on. You don't really want to dip it in there. I mean, you can if you want like a lot of nuts in there, I suppose, but you just sprinkle it on. It's so simple. These have no smell. There's no nothing. I mean, really, they just look, see, they just look like nuts. Now, this is where, if you try to do this like on the first layer, the weight of these like start pulling all of this caramel down too far for whatever reason. So that's why it is better for the second dip. And I mean, that's all it takes. You take that, you let it dry. I think we got ours at like PetSmart, and then really these are the apples. I mean, it dries to a perfect finish. These are embedded perfectly. I love the fact that the longer they sit outside, see what I mean about the gravity, how it did start to pull this down, but I love that it kind of gave me that extra chunk on the bottom. It also created a much better balance for all of these. But these are great because these could be year-round. A year-round decor if you had a little country kitchen, or maybe you had a little, a hutch where you wanted to have some candy, because it has a great nostalgic vibe. Okay, maybe not the bone handles. Maybe you wanted to do something that's got like more of a popsicle stick, but that's really what it is. And the colors of that, I mean, I did nothing. I did nothing. I think that the coloration of this is just probably from the caramel, but I love how the caramel just darkens. It is crazy that it goes from this really light color. So again, I'll kind of give you a side by side, so that it is wet, and that's dry. That is the change. This is the same batch. So I didn't make like, this is a batch and this is a camera batch. It's the same batch that I made initially because I made a lot of it, but that's the distinct difference. So you want it to be that pale color, knowing it's going to dry to that beautiful color. So fun, right? Who knew that you would, on a Saturday, whether probably some of you, it's like maybe even into Sunday morning, that you would even think that you'd ever want to make faux caramel apples. To me, it's yes. It's a yes all day. I think it's hilarious. It's fun. You could obviously tie ribbons on this. This would still make a great decor thing, a great gift, believe it or not, for those that love Halloween. I'm going to just move this off to the side because this is kind of a sticky, goopy mess. I already have it, but I do. I love things that are just random. I think that to me is what a hoopla is all about. It's about creating kind of random ideas, random thoughts, and random elements. So yeah, a little bit of Mod Podge, a little bit of vintage photo distress paint, mix it up, dip in your apples, get different sizes. I definitely think that the small apples are really cute. A little bit of K-Cob. Hey, maybe you want to do sprinkles. You know, they sell like little clay sprinkles that aren't real cake sprinkles that you can put that in. I think that could be a really fun thing to do. But yeah, I'm just going to bring in my plate because I have this vintage platter. I actually bought this online. It shattered into bazillion pieces, but hey, we were able to super glue it, and I kind of don't mind the cracks. So yeah. And then I just sprinkled on a little bit more of those onto the tray just because I thought it looked like extra nuts. But yeah, I mean, on a shelf, they're going to look so charming just to have these apples. I think it's great fun. So having some faux apples with the bones, having some sugar bones, that's another great idea to do with the bones because, well, you can never have enough. A jar of bones, that's another great thing. Maybe you want to do some bubbling cauldrons. There's going to be more ideas that, I mean, when you think about all these ideas, when you think about all the stuff that you either did or didn't need to actually put in here, there's a lot of elements. Let's not forget these great little ideas. Trick or treat, boo. Oh my gosh, I'm packing in a lot of stuff. I'm glad, Mario, I'm glad you moved some of that stuff out, that's for sure.
Trying to give some room.
Yeah. Then we have the little jacks too. We got our little frames. Oh my gosh, look at these ideas. There's a lot in here. Our little framed, see, how cute is that? Little framed Frights. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my word. And then, can you grab a couple jacks, please?
Sure.
Then a couple of, well, we have this one. There's our blue one. Then we've got our other colors, our little rainbow jacks as well. Look at that. So much fun. So, yeah, those are ideas for, gosh,
Ideas
for the
days.
hoopla. I mean, so many different ideas. I think that to me is what it's all about, is just remembering the technique involved in each one. Because again, you might go and say like, oh, they sell out of these. I mean, I'll be honest, they sell out really quick. They do bring these out every single year. I've seen them every year. I've just walked by them. I never really thought of the whole alcohol inking. And then, you know, I think it was the bubbles that made me think of alcohol ink. And then I'm like, ooh, hey, that'd be fun. So it really is just about setting yourself up for being inspired. That to me is the whole thing. So some ideas for hoopla.